Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is the first annual No Place Like Home, and it's a virtual conference. We here at Idaho State Planning have had this on our wish list for some time, and this was the year that we were going to pull the trigger and do this. And as it turns out, we had this COVID thing that dropped in, and so we moved it from a venue where people would come, which we kind of miss because people like to get together and chat and connect. And so we moved it online. And so we won't be able to do all those fun things of connecting, but we've got a great lineup. We got some great people. We'll talk about that in just a minute. We're going to do 3 days. We're going to go from 10 to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's some breaks in there. The reason we wanted to do this conference was in my profession as an elder law attorney, I run into folks who are struggling. And it's not the folks you think that are struggling. It's often the family that's struggling. And they don't have access to really good information, or they have access to too much information. If you've been on the interwebs lately, you can plug in a few words and 6 or 7 million hits in 3.45 seconds, and they're proud of themselves, and then you just exhaust yourself trying to read through that. So the goal was to pull together some subject matter experts and give you information and resources. And every one of the people on for the next 3 days, our goal is to encourage, to push, to batter, to get you to move forward and do some planning. And then give you the resources to help you do that. Because having all of this knowledge and having access to all these resources is only so helpful. You need to move forward. So that's what we're going to be talking about. People talk about aging in place. And I fear that most of them don't understand what that means or how to get there. So for us, aging in place is really being very intentional about aging in the home of your choosing, because that may change. We'll talk about this. So we got a great lineup. You're going to love the speakers. Just a quick shout out to some of our sponsors. We have some sponsors help make this possible. Blue Cross of Idaho. And they introduced not too long ago a combo Medicare Medicaid plan, and very helpful. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later when we talk about finances and that. Home care assistance, thank you. Aldo Cabrini over there at Thrivent. Aldo, thank you. Thank you for being on here. Aldo is Italian, and I probably have said his name wrong. Adelot Financial Group, we're going to be talking with Justin Walker later. There's this outfit called Life Changes Elder Care Consulting. They're wonderful. We might be talking to one of their principals here in just a minute. Some logistical things, if you're logged on. So just some logistics here. You can log on using the same information each day. It doesn't change. You don't have to get a new log in link or anything. Just use the same one. We'll be up and running tomorrow morning, same time. I don't know about donuts and coffee. I don't know that we have enough for everybody. And my team has put on the instructions that you can feel free to come and go as needed. Yeah, hang on. I mean, stay in if you can, but you'll be muted and we're not going to turn on your camera or let you turn it on. So if you're sitting there in your pajamas, we're not going to know if you're still in. I have jokes about this. There was a judge down in the South finally issued a memo because they were doing these hearings by Zoom like we are. And he had to tell people to put pants on, to get out of bed, quit smoking. Oh, Anyhow, it's just kind of funny. I guess when we're home, we're home. But you could do all that. We won't know. We won't know at all. If you have questions, down at the bottom, you'll see, or up at the top, you'll see a little bar of instructions. And one of the things on there is the chat button. And if you click that chat, it'll pull up a window and you can ask questions in there. Pay attention to that because we'll give you some handouts that you can download. You can hit that thing and download them. They'll come down to your computer. You can click on them, pull them up. You can print them off from there. But there'll be some good information in there. Okay, that's it. Again, if you have questions, I won't see them, but somebody will, and we'll answer those for you. Okay, it's my pleasure and my privilege to be presenting in our first section today with two absolutely lovely, wonderful women. Dee Childers is the owner and founder of Life Changes Elder Care Consulting. Long name, very descriptive though. She is a professional aging life care manager. Dee, is that right? We've got her, there we go. You're unmuted. So now you can say yes.
Yes. That's the Professional Association for Care Managers.
Very good. We're going to dig into that a little bit. So hang on. You've been doing this for about 8 years now, right?
I have. Getting close to 9.
I think I ran into you about 8 years ago, and you had a vision, even though it wasn't fully implemented. I loved the vision. And I think you've done a marvelous job of implementing that and making yourself available. You've been through this with your folks. You understand the ups, the downs, the emotional side of all this. There's a 475 bazillion questions and decisions. And okay, maybe not that many, but there's quite a few. And when you have like siblings and parents, it's kind of a geometrical progression, right? It's not just 1 and 1 is 2 and 1 and 2 is 3. It's like 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, and can get very, very involved very quickly. And you've been all over the community. You're just involved everywhere. We are so pleased to have you this morning. Jody Wilkes, one of my favorite people. She's just lovely and has been a very big supporter of Idaho Estate Planning. And you too, Dee. Thank you. First Choice Home Health and Hospice. Jody, you're a social worker with 11 years now of experience. Now, people are going to misunderstand that. They're going to say, okay, well, he's been doing something for 30 years. Social work for 11 is like 40 something years, right?
Actually, I've been a social worker for 20.
Oh, 20.
But I've been in home health and hospice work for about 12 now.
Okay, so, which again is more like 30 or 40 years because that's hard work.
At least, yes.
We appreciate your passion for the home care and the hospice. I know you like to do some scrapbooking
I do.
and a few other things. So lovely. All right, just going to remind everybody what we're trying to do is provide information. What we would love to do is help them understand that we have resources. They don't have to go this alone. Mm-hmm. I was visiting with a lady the other day who is an only child, and mom is having some struggles. That's just the way it is. And she said, so I don't have anybody to bounce that off of. And I said, yeah, but there's an upside too. And that is when you decide what you need to do, you don't have to convince other people that this is what we're doing.
So true.
So we just want to talk about living intentionally, making decisions intentionally. So if you two will help me, we have just kind of a glossary of some terms that I think people don't always understand. You two will understand these perfectly. Assisted living, this is for folks who maybe have disabilities, who maybe can't or shouldn't be living independently.
Mhm.
And this is not, they don't provide medical type care or medical, what's the word I'm looking for? Technical care that way. This is helping with the activities of daily living. Is that right?
Correct. It is not skilled care.
It's not the skilled care.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. Okay,
But they
anything
do
else we should add on assisted living facilities?
Well, they do have nursing as a part of what they
Mhm.
do. So their primary focus is to help with medication management.
Mhm.
That's a big piece of what they do, but they can do small, maybe bandage changes. So they can do some medical, but it's very small scale. If you need more, then you would bring in one of the other services we're going to talk about.
Correct.
And one of the things about the ALF, assisted living, is something that's very helpful is there's eyes on, there's people
Mhm.
there, there's a number of people. And so
Yeah.
it helps because there's people that can keep an eye on you and make sure that you're taken care of.
Yeah.
Independent living facility is truly just is a home choice, which I love the independent living situations because they're going to cook for me. We had this conversation with my mom. It took some time, but she realized she didn't have to cook anymore, or she didn't have to go buy the groceries. She didn't have to do the dishes. She didn't have to put everything away. Anyhow, so we have a number of very nice independent living situations in Boise. Anything else we should add to that one?
Just that they also do light housekeeping.
Oh, yeah.
So that's really nice. They will do light housekeeping typically.
Yeah. Jody, the skilled nursing is kind of, so you've got, I think, independent here, assisted living, skilled nursing then jumps in when we need some medical care, rehabilitation.
Mhm.
Yeah, the thing about it is that they've got a nursing staff on staff 24-hour.
Yes. Yes, they have a nurse on the premises at all times,
And
whether
so,
that's a RN or an LPN.
got it. And so one of the benefits, we're going to talk with Gerald Boson about this, but a couple of benefits again is we got the eyes on, and then we have the skilled staff to help us with those things that are, just, I'm not, personally, I'm not trained to help do that kind of stuff. Most families aren't trained to do that kind of stuff. And so can be just a great a great resource.
And if I could, before you move, one of the other things that's so helpful, people sometimes want to skip this step. But what I tell them, this is intense therapy.
Right.
Where if you go home from, say, the hospital, you're going to get therapy maybe twice a week because it's going to come to you or you're going to go to it. When you move to rehab or skilled nursing, you're going to get therapy every day, either 5 or 6 days a week. And so your progression is so much faster and better, having taken advantage of this opportunity.
Very good. In fact, we're going to hit the next one is rehab, and those two are connected. Rehab is the term we use. It's, say you've had a fall or a stroke or some other event, then if we've been in the hospital, typically move you to a rehab. And then D, yes, what is it, 5 to 6 days a week? You're there. The idea is to get you out of there, right? Gonna get you in and get you out. Okay, this next one is what we call home care. It's coming. There it is. Home care.
Can we back up one quick second?
Sure.
Because the piece that we missed about long-term care is that same skilled nursing facility sometimes becomes home.
Right.
That there
Yes,
are
thank
people
you.
that don't have the support structure they need anywhere else, and so there's a part of a long-term care facility that's for rehab, and some are standalone, but then there's the long-term care
Right.
facility part of it, and that's important because some people actually live in long-term care.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
nursing
you.
facility.
Well, and those are just situations where, to me, sometimes it's helping dad understand that it's killing him to take care of mom.
Right.
Or the kids don't quite understand that they can't provide that level of care. And so for a quality of life, we need to make a change. And so, yes, thank you very much. Home care, this is again more supportive at home. And Jody, when we're doing the home care, we could actually mix in a little bit of help from the family, help from professionals. And they can come in, somebody can come in a couple hours a day. They can come in more than that. You could find somebody in assisted living who's getting some home care or what they call personal care services.
Correct. And I would say with home care, the biggest key is that these are non-skilled. They will not do wound dressing changes. They don't do administration of medications. They'll do reminders. They'll do house cleaning, laundry, all of that. They can help with bathing, but nothing deeper than that. That's a different service at that point.
Yeah. And they'll actually talk to you and keep you company.
Yes, they will.
And keep you safe. And these are important things for the son, right?
Absolutely.
We want them safe. All right, Jody, the next one is hospice, and you can talk to us about hospice.
I can talk about hospice all day long.
You probably do.
I do, most days, yes. Yes. So hospice is when someone's been given a terminal diagnosis with a life projection of 6 months or less if the disease runs its normal course. What is normal? We have no idea.
Yeah.
So, people hear that 6 months and panic. That doesn't mean you're dying in 6 months or right now. It just means that's what Medicare requires for language, that we wouldn't be surprised if in 6 months you're no longer with us. I've had patients on for 3 years. So again, we don't know what normal is, but it's a broad scope of services with social work, chaplain services, volunteers, nursing, CNAs. So we have a whole broad spectrum of services that we can put into the patient's home. And home is wherever they live. So
Right.
we go into private homes, independent, ALFs, skilled nursing. We do it all.
Yeah. And I like the concept that one of the priorities really truly is quality of life.
Absolutely.
We live in a society where we're not as close to death as we used to be. So we tend to push it off and fear it. And the great thing of the folks that I have worked with that provide hospice care, embrace it. Say, this is going to happen. What can we do to make your life better? I've heard stories of the chaplain helping people to reconnect
Mhm.
with that son or daughter they haven't talked to
Absolutely.
in a long time, because they don't want to leave and leave that undone.
Yes.
So
That is
yeah,
what we term unfinished business.
and so that the quality of life, actually quality of life is all the way through what we've been talking about. We want a high quality of life. We'll talk about this more. I've got all kinds of ideas on that, but all right, dementia is a broad term, right? This is not, oh, they have dementia, so now everybody knows what that is. And the answer is no, we don't, because dementia is a very broad term. And it talks about kind of our status, not a disease. Did I get that right? You know, for an attorney, that wasn't bad.
Not bad at all.
I said that pretty good.
We're going to make a social worker out of you yet, Mark.
So dementia is generally it's a cognitive issue. It can, it's just, we have a disease that interferes with our memory, our thinking ability, communication. I think we've got on there maybe problem solving. So these are all things that are a part of dementia. Alzheimer's dementia seems to be the one is the most well known and probably the largest source of dementia, but it isn't the only thing that provides us with a diagnosis of dementia. Jody, activities of daily living.
Eating, dressing, being able to get from your recliner to the bathroom, being able to take a shower, feeding yourself. Those are all what we term activities of daily living, ADLs.
Now, and ADLs, so we talk about always, the abbreviation, of course, is ADLs. This comes into play when we're talking about in-home care, personal care service. This comes into play if we're talking about assisted living facility. It comes into play if we're talking about looking at benefits, governmental benefits such as Medicaid or military benefits. This is something that comes into play with all of those, the activities of daily living. And everybody thinks they know, and you know what, they're probably pretty close without knowing that this is kind of a, you know, there is a standard list, but yeah. Does it interfere with your daily life? And again, it's not a disease. it's not a diagnosis. It just tells us where you are, and helps us to understand what would maybe be the next step.
And I would even say, and Dee, jump in here, if, you know, when you're assessing for activities of daily living, you have to quantify that with the here and now. What can you do today? Because I will ask someone, can you stand long enough to make a sandwich? Of course I can. Well, they could 20 years ago, but they can't today, you know, nor would it be safe. So you have to kind of frame that as, can you do this today? Can you show me, to give you a more accurate picture to determine what level of care they might need.
So to that point, if I could, is just it's not a black or white, I can or I can't, but where are you on the continuum of needing some assistance? And so that's why this language is super important to become familiar with, because it does cross all arenas of aging.
Well, and I liked, Jody, what you said, asking them to show you that they can do it. Because if you give them a sheet of paper and say, yeah, do you have any issues with eating? Oh, heck no. I'm fine, yeah. And can you bathe? Well,
of course I can.
Yeah, but they say they can, and oh my goodness, yes, I like that. And so
being able to and actually doing can be two very, very different things.
Yes, yep, I can get that. I have been there recently enough that yes, I'm understanding this. All right, if you would help us, we've thrown in some as attorneys, we're always doing hypotheticals, that we have to apply what we learn. So we've got some unique problems in here. Actually, they're not as unique as you might think. You two know that they're not unique. Other people might think that, oh, this is a really unique situation. We're going, yeah, there's some unique aspects, but boy, these are things that we run into a lot. So these, we're just going to kind of walk through these, throw in your thoughts over the course of 3 days. We can come back to these and say, remember Michael and Deborah's had a stroke, and anyhow. So let me go through these just real quick, and please jump in and help me so that we can set this up for for some of our other discussions. So we're talking about Michael and Deborah, and again, these may or may not be based on real people and real situations. So the names are not the people that, but
the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
There you go. There you go. And we may have added a little tweak here and there, maybe combined a couple of stories just so that we can get it all in there. We're thinking Michael and Deborah, and in our thinking, Michael's 80, Deborah's just a couple years younger. They've been married 40 years. This is his first, her second. He's a Vietnam vet. Deborah has a couple of kids. He does not. They have 7 grandchildren. Deborah's oldest daughter lives locally, has 2 very active teens and a special needs preteen, and the rest of the family lives out of state. This is so unusual. Sorry.
Not a bit.
No, and it raises almost all of the issues that we run into on an ongoing basis. And that's kind of why we threw that out there. So if you're listening in today, if you're watching this, if you see yourself in one of these, that was the idea. And then you could pick up and go, okay, what are they doing about it? What are you guys recommending? I want to know a little bit more. So that's kind of what we're doing. So adding to this, Deborah had a stroke. She's paralyzed on the right side and unable to speak. Again, not unusual. After rehab, so that's what happened, right? That's kind of the timeline, hospital to rehab. Rehab's pretty intensive. We got her home, but she's regained quite a bit of her motor skills, but she's still having struggle with the activities of daily living, and in this case, showering and toileting. She can walk with her walker. That doesn't mean she does use the walker, but she can walk with the walker. And Michael is the caregiver. And as not unusual, there's a struggle to communicate because she's having an issue with language and speaking. And both of them are frustrated and tired. Michael had a knee replacement 10 years ago and is not unusual with a hip or a knee replacement. The other side is giving him some issues now. And so, and to add to this, they have a nice home up on the West Bench. It's about 2,800 square feet, built in 1970. And they've added carpet in remodel as the kids were growing up. And as the kids moved out, they updated it. So they can live on one floor for the most part. They have a basement and then they have a bonus room upstairs. And now with Deborah unable to go downstairs, Mike is the one that carries the laundry down and up. And as we remember, he had problems with his knee and now his hip. Does this all sound really unique and unusual? Yeah. Before we move to the next one, the two of you, I know, have seen this. Dee, particularly, you try to help families in this situation. What are the challenges? We got the physical challenges. I got that. We've laid that out. But what are some of the other challenges that we need to deal with here, or at least identify?
One of the first ones that pops out at me, especially as a marriage and family therapist, is the children from previous marriage and the child from the current marriage, and roles and responsibilities, and is authority, input, mutual? Do they all share perspectives, or are there some children that are more aligned with
With
mom
mom,
versus dad?
yeah.
And so there's family challenges with that one. And if it's a well-functioning family, great, but that's such a rarity.
Well, yeah, but even with a well-functioning family, there are communication issues. And like you said, there's not a lot of well-functioning families. We all function. It seems to me one other issue here that jumps out at me is that we have a daughter here, and then the rest are out of town. In my experience, that's also added a lot of tension, because either the one here is in full denial, and so the kids out of town don't see anything or know anything till they come into town, and then all of a sudden this is a big issue. Or the one here is just quietly taking care of everything, and the kids out of town really don't understand what's going on. So I see that a lot, and that works even in fairly well-functioning families. So that communication is, to me, can still be an issue. Anything else, Jody? What else we got? Oh, Dee.
Well, I was just going to say, and we really hope those children from out of town are not seagulls. And those are the ones that fly in and fly out, but while they fly in, they poop all over everything.
I've seen that more than a few times. Yeah, and then they get everybody worked up, and they get everything worked up, and they call the attorney, or they call Dee, and this is just a nightmare, and my sister just isn't getting it done, not recognizing all the other issues with the children. So, Jody, this is a situation, it seems to me, that some home care could be huge.
Yeah. When she's coming out of rehab, hopefully they ordered home health for her to continue physical therapy. Physical therapists can go in there and they see different needs. They order me to get in there and kind of help with some of these issues.
Yeah.
The housing issue, that would prompt me to say, okay, we need to have a discussion. What are your goals? Do you wish to remain in your home? If so, we need to start putting some pieces together. If not, let's start talking about options.
Like getting rid of the shag carpet from the 70s.
No one should ever have shag carpet, ever. It's just wrong.
Yeah, there's some issues there.
Definite issues there. With the communication piece, getting her some speech therapy and occupational therapy might be really helpful to help her learn how to communicate with her new deficiencies and disabilities.
Dee? Oh, go ahead.
One of the things I think is so important for everyone to understand is that it's more automatic in today's world, where the doctors or discharge planners will make sure that home health is ordered. Right. But if it's not, that the advocates for the family, for the individual hospitalized, ask for it. There's very seldom any reason that they would be declined.
Got it.
Post-hospitalization. So ask if it's not offered.
Yeah. Now, and it's very easy to get home health ordered.
Got it.
It's a phone call to the doctor.
And home health, as opposed to home care, home health is covered by Medicare.
Correct.
Yeah. So people, keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to say this, certain generation, I won't mention which one, kind of proud, kind of independent. They're not as thrilled with bringing help in. You know what? They can just do this themselves. Dee, any suggestions to the kids in that situation?
Yes, that this is short term. This isn't going to, they're not living in your house. They come in, they help you do the work, and then they leave, and then you have homework to do. So this is a shorter term intervention that can make a huge difference in how you progress.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. All right, we're going to jump to Gloria. Again, this may or may not be a real person, but her name isn't Gloria. Gloria's wonderful. We all know Gloria's. We know these people. Husband of 55 years passed away about 3 years ago. She moved to California to be closer to, well, we put her only son, but we know that's not true. She moved to be closer to her grandkids. And then we've got this written up. We've got a great grandbaby on the way. David moved her into his house, didn't necessarily do any, adaptation or anything, adaptation. She just moved in. They have one of the kids left at home. He travels 15 to 20 days a month. He's on the road. And so Julia and Gloria and her daughter-in-law, Julia, kind of have each other for extended periods of time. And I think I can put in, I don't know that the two of you will say this, but let me just say it. So often it is the women in our life that step up and provide that care as the caregiver. And it doesn't matter if they're a daughter or a daughter-in-law. It is just, I don't know if it's societal. I don't know if that's just the way it works out. Women, I don't know, they tend to be more empathetic and do a good job as caregivers. So I guess we just assume that you will. So 9 years ago, Gloria had a heart attack, had bypass surgery. She's kind of been hit or miss following up with her cardiologist. But right now, not any, big issues with that. Has some arthritis, and then, just some things that, the normal aches and pains of being active in your younger years. Now, she didn't play football, but some of us did. Some of us wrecked on our bikes and our motorcycles and, rolled the pickup and, were in automobile accidents. I'm not saying any of that has an impact later in life. I'm just saying that active people could have some issues later in life. Didn't have a great relationship with David, her son. She uses the term rapscallion, and I think that's
word.
I think that's like 15 points to use that word. She's been trying to reach out to him, kind of decided maybe they should repair that relationship, and he's ignored her till the youngest child was born back in '98, and he's offered the olive branch, and they've kind of worked, but it has not gone well. And so she's been independent, and now she's not. But David and his wife, her son and her daughter-in-law, both really concerned about, a single fall could really change the dynamics and change her needs. Anything we could add to this situation?
Well, yes, many. One of them was maybe like a conversation about options up front before just moving Gloria into the home. That was might have worked really well short term, but it was not with any long-term thinking about how well that's going to work. Great when she's independent, but what happens now that when she's not independent?
Yeah. And maybe she's still somewhat independent, but like they said, it's a short minute from being independent to not being independent. So Dee, you're the one I thought of when we put this together, something that would have been so helpful, it seems to me, and it has to be a third party. It just has to be somebody that can walk in and say, you guys aren't getting it done. Because in the family, that's so hard to do. But having a third party come in and have a discussion, what are our goals? What are the options? What makes the most sense for us? We've got a daughter here who's going to help us. Yeah, she's got her own issues, right? That's going to be just a struggle. And I think that one is so easy for people to misunderstand. I'm taking care of mom right now, and and if I need some help, our daughter lives just 2 blocks down, and she'll come and help. She wants to, I know that. She wants mom to be taken care of. Again, we want safety, we want a quality of life, but maybe the daughter just can't, and maybe she doesn't even know that.
Well, and there's kind of 2 pieces to that. I'm sure there's more, but bandwidth is one of them. Does the daughter have the bandwidth with what else is going on in her life? And is it her career? Is it children? There's a lot of things that can impact that. Her own parents, or that we just, that one just skipped right out of my head. There's the quality of life. Did you see it leave?
I did not. I'm sorry. I looked away just for a moment.
Okay. It just came right back in. So the other part about it is that people don't think about that caregiving is a new role, and it changes the dynamics of the relationship.
Oh yeah.
And so sometimes after people are in that relationship for a while, they realize, I don't want to be my mom's caregiver. I want to be my mom's daughter. And the mom wants that too.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean you don't play an active role in their health and well-being, but maybe being the one in the driver's seat and taking them to the appointments and doing all those things does not serve your relationship.
Yeah. And visiting with my mom, she doesn't need me to be a caregiver. She needs me to call and tell her what's going on and tell her stories about the grandkids and how they're doing. And then every chance that I get to be down that way to stop in, that's what she needs from me. And frankly, she recognizes that. She did a really good job and realized, that's what I want for my kids. I don't want you taking me to the bathroom. I don't want you wiping me or feeding me. I want you to be my child. I want that relationship.
That's one of the number one concerns of us as we age is the concern of becoming a burden to our children. And we want to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, with the discussion with my mom, we finally got to the point where she was considering moving out of her 2-floor apartment. Had concrete stairs going up the back and up the front, and there was no handrails, and she'd had 2 falls, and it was driving us crazy. As we started to think about that, my sweet sister and her husband had her come up. They live about 40 miles away, maybe 30. And they had her come up, and they recently bought a fairly nice home, and there's just the 2 of them. They say, Mom, we could make a couple of, a little bit of remodeling here. We could do this and that, and we would love to have you come live with us. And my mom, having seen a little bit of this, said, I love you and you love me, and I don't want to change that. And so she thanked them very sincerely. They were authentic, and she thanked them and said, "Thank you for thinking of me, but no." Yeah, she was very clear, I think, to me, and that's not many that are. She was very clear about that relationship that she, that she wanted to have with her kids. All right, so lots of stuff there, lots of stuff. Let's talk about, oh, sorry.
Sorry, I would just add, so many people go into caregiving of their parents, grandparents, whoever, and they don't realize how big of a job it is. And they get stuck. They don't know how, they know it's not working, but they don't know how to get out of it at that point. And that's where I typically have those conversations with my families of, you know what, maybe you need to just be son. So let's talk about these options.
Or the husband, or the wife, or the sibling, or
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. So there are people out there, maybe that just left because we said, maybe you can't be the caregiver for your husband or your wife, or, for your mom or your dad. It's not completely what we're saying, but you might not be able to. Mm-hmm. And I think all we're saying here is we want you to be aware of that might not be the best thing. And,
and there are options.
Yeah. And so that's the next thing, is it might not work that way. There's always things that you can do. You can go visit mom and do a puzzle. You can go visit mom and help with the quilting. You can help with all those photos that she has. There's so much you can do to still provide care. It doesn't have to be these activities of daily living. Go have lunch.
Doesn't mean that you're not involved.
Right.
You still are in conversation and know what's going on, and maybe choose to help influence in a different direction, but you're not the point person for those things. You have an intermediary.
Thank you.
Well, and I think families feel so much guilt, and a lot of times it's displaced guilt. I promised mom I would take care of her. And, if we start to reframe that of, you are taking care of her by saying, you know what, maybe this is not the role for me. I am going to get somebody else to do that role I can no longer do. You're still taking care of them.
Yes. Thank you.
It is like every other job in the world. I would never make a good financial person. I would never make a good CPA. I don't like doing that level of detail there. But the interpersonal interaction and listening. So there's almost like an assessment of one's own skills and strengths, and then one's areas that are less developed. And does it marry up? And so choice and assessment of characteristics of all the parties involved.
Agreed.
I love it. Thank you. And those of you that are worried, we're giving you permission to consider the possibility that it might not be the best situation. So let's talk about Henry, the widower. They lived in, he served in Vietnam. They came back and moved to Parma, he and his wife. Texas Longhorns, awesome. Ran an insurance agency in town. To me, that's a lot of work for a hobby. Just a lot of dang work for a hobby.
Big time.
They adopted in 1983, and then Kathy was killed in a car crash. And Henry and his teenage daughter, Rebecca, that's all they had was each other, or at least that's how they felt. That's all they had was each other. So she hung around, did a PhD in biomolecular sciences. Now, we probably didn't make that up. We won't tell you who Henry is, but we probably didn't make that up. and so I have no idea what her thesis really is. Bovine respiratory syncytial virus. But
Very
got a really
specific.
nice job offer after that.
I'll
Back
bet.
in New Jersey, major animal health company. Now, this unfortunately is not unique. She would like Dad to move out closer to her because she'd be giving up a really nice job and a nice career, at least, you know, and I think that's authentic. And, you know, it would be better if he moved out there. And he retired from the insurance business, sold his cattle to a local kid that he got to know really well. And he kind of helps out, including, and the ranchers will tell you this, delivering calves in the snow in March after midnight. Any one of those is enough for me to not do ranching. Henry will tell you that he's fit as a fiddle, except for the diabetes, but he's been managing it pretty good. He's had a couple of knee replacements, and he's, you know, again, as a younger man, got off the horse, maybe a little more quickly than he had thought. And now he's got a little forgetfulness. And he's worried about that. He's worried that if he isn't there all the time, he's not going to be able to manage his diabetes, which you're both nodding. Like that never happens, right?
Never.
Too often.
And so, Jody, you mentioned that for home care, that's and assisted living. I think Dee brought that up too. That's a huge thing. Is a little bit of medication management. Not that you're prescribing it and giving it to them, but at least reminding them, did you take your, you know, insulin this morning, or did you give yourself the shot this morning? And with short-term memory issues, you absolutely can't remember. It's just the way it is. They can't remember having done that. Home's in pretty good repair, but he's got a big farm. And so while the home is safe, the farm, as most farms are, is not safe. And so he still drives to town. This is not the same gentleman, but there was the gentleman that got pulled over because he rode his horse into town over in Caldwell. It was a few years back. And they said, you can't do that anymore. So he drove his riding lawnmower into town.
That was ingenuity.
Yeah, well, we'll get there. We're not old yet, okay? I'm just telling you, men don't get old. At least up here, we're still the same. Anyhow, I don't think that was any safer than being on a horse, you know, to drive the riding lawnmower. And you can just see the poor police officer, right? Henry, you can't do this. Why can't I do this? Because it's not safe. I'm safe. I've been doing this for years. I don't know what you're talking about. Any thoughts for the daughter that lives in New Jersey? You got some thoughts?
Many.
Go ahead, Jody.
Good. Listen, so folks, if you have this situation, visit with Jody, visit with Dee. There's some thoughts. Give us a couple off the top of your head, Jody.
Well, the first thing I would encourage would be for the daughter to have a conversation with Henry's doctor of, you know, we're seeing some of these signs and symptoms. Let's do some evaluation and testing and see really where his dementia is. You know, is it to the level of, okay, now we need to get some personal care services in to remind him to take his meds, or are we beyond that? Do we need to talk about assisted living to make him safe? And if, you know, depending on the outcome of that, then, you know, if the daughter wants to do that and move him, now is the time to move him, not later. Because as we all know, with anybody with any kind of dementia, confusion, forgetfulness, just normal aging, we don't do well with change. So the sooner we can get him back to New Jersey and settled, the better it's going to be for everybody, if that's the way they're going to go. As far as the farm not being safe, we could make suggestions like, why don't you lease out some of that land and let someone else take care of it? And, you know, it would generate a little bit of income for him, but he would still be free to, you know, walk around his land if he wanted to. So he wouldn't be losing it. He's just lending it out.
Yeah. Dee, this would be a great time to talk to you.
Yes, it would.
Yes.
And, you know, one of the things with someone like Henry that I really like, Henry has been a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
He's had the business of raising his longhorns, and he's had an insurance company. And so one of the ways I would work with him is, you know, is that, Henry, you're a businessman. You know how things work to keep a business up and afloat. And when things are not working the way they should, we need to do things to shore it up. And so we need to kind of focus perhaps on framing, you know, I would frame it like, this is the business of your life. So how do we shore up these areas for you?
Mm-hmm.
I probably would recommend that they look for alternatives beside moving him back to New Jersey,
Yes.
because I think that would not be in his best interest. That would be a very different lifestyle from what he's known, unless there is, and there could be, if there was, you know, a certified family home equivalent that was out in the country that might
Mm-hmm.
work nicely. So that means then touring to see, you know, to visit and see what's there. But I think not only the change piece, but it would just be so drastic. It wouldn't align with what his life has been like.
Mm-hmm.
And so keeping some of that, unless he has some high desire for city life,
Mm-hmm.
to focus on shoring him up where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
So we found in some of the more rural areas that when they move into a place like an assisted living or independent living, guess who they find?
Friends.
People they've known
forever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a difficulty in moving from here to,
Mm-hmm.
I think the homework is still worthwhile. Fly out there, do the homework, see what you got.
Absolutely.
Dee, Jody, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate this. Oh, glad to have you here. So thank you. We'll see you in 5 minutes.